Alright, so what is going on, everyone? In today's forecast, we'll be looking at a coming active weather pattern that is set to bring a major winter storm and even some more with that across the country, including throughout the second half of February. We'll be looking at major snowstorms bringing huge snowfall amounts possibly to the Northern Plains up in the Midwest, and then potential for super weather outbreaks in the southeast region and surrounding places. We'll be diving more into these details in today's forecast, so we're going to get right started. So by starting off today's video, we'll be just looking at some simple graphics here. Firstly, we're going to be looking at severe weather outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center. In fact, it does have a small marginal risk area that is including the portions of the eastern Florida Panhandle and the southeast Georgia area. If we look at specific hazards here, it does look like this is just going to be mainly a damaging wind threat, with no other risk as outlooked at this time. So it's going to be just an isolated severe wind threat for the southeast Georgia and eastern Florida Panhandle area. But if we move on to day 2 here, it does look like once again Florida Panhandle will get some severe weather. In fact, they got the severe risk for tomorrow into a slight risk of severe weather. It is going to be looking like a tornado/wind day in this region, with a slight risk for both those risks respectively. In fact, if we do look at it here, it shows a 5% tornado risk, including really just the Florida Panhandle region in that brown shaded area there. However, if we do also look at anything with the wind threat, it is basically the same deal here. So if you're in the Florida Panhandle, expect some severe weather possible tomorrow in that area. Now, going all the way to day 6, 7, it does look like we have a 15% severe risk, including northeast Texas, southeast Oklahoma, into northern Louisiana, Mississippi, western Tennessee, and much of Arkansas, especially across the southern eastern half of the state. Now, if we do go ahead to day 7 as well, we also have another severe risk area. Well, this is further east, but this does include eastern Mississippi, all of Alabama, western Florida Panhandle, and western Georgia, and into middle Tennessee there. That is where we have that severe risk. It does look like the tornadoes and damaging winds are probably the primary hazards with this one once again, with this large hail being yet a smaller threat, but still something we cannot rule out with even the strongest storms, especially given the expected squall line that has been typical throughout the cold seasons for weather outbreaks. And yet again, that looks like that's going to be the dominant storm mode with this one. Alright, so now we'd be looking at our future radar here for the next week or so. It does look like we will have this upcoming storm system to watch that will be taking place across Southeast, in fact, starting tomorrow, possibly in the morning hours. However, it will only be a storm time by Sunday afternoon, right around dinner time, maybe a little after. It does look like some of that heavy rain will try to take place across Southeast, in fact, 6 p.m. Eastern, well, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It does look like we'll start to see some of that rain really come through Southeast. And this could be a time where we start to see mountain snow show up in the southern Appalachians, although this is wacky drawing, so of course not that far out to the coast, but really just some of the Appalachian ranges. We could see some of that snow as well. In fact, it is possible that if the wraparound air is even colder, we could get some of that snow down into the lower elevations surrounding the Appalachians. In fact, as this storm is trying to vect further north into the mid-Atlantic, some of this could initially start in the form as freezing rain, even a wintry mix, but that will eventually change into all rain, although some of those backside locations could get some snow out of this briefly before the station ends. So it does look like there's a very brief window for some ice accumulations at the beginning of the event for some places, such as portions of North Carolina, Virginia, mainly, although this is only one model. How it does look like our first big storm system is set to develop across the plains early next week. In fact, if we look at it here, it's showing a widespread area of rain and showers that would be expected to move through much of the country, although it does look like some snow could take place across the northern plains and the upper Midwest, especially closer to the Canadian border, where I just circled there. However, our second storm system will be initiating at the same time, so we'll be trying to initiate Wednesday morning as soon as. It'll be bringing some snow, however, to Wyoming, Colorado, Nebraska by right about midday, and then this snow will start to spread out into the plains bringing that snow across places such as Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then mainly some rain to the south of that rain snow line there. In fact, that rain snow line actually could bring some ice and winter mix once again, as it does look like this will be quite a robust system. In fact, it does look like that ice will be quite a possibility we'll also be having to monitor, along with that the severe weather potential associated with our day 6-7 outlooks that have been released for the southeast. This will be coming through really at its best Thursday, and then really bringing that line of storms through Thursday afternoon and mainly the evening. So this will be more of a nocturnal event for a squall line. Of course, this could bring a widespread area of damaging winds, but even the potential for some nocturnal tornadoes at night. This will all be completely moving through Friday and then into Friday night. So it looks like Thursday will be a very active day for the country, especially, although some things could get started as soon as Wednesday night, maybe even the afternoon. But it will be until Thursday most of that activity really begins to show. As it does look like through the rest of the second half of February, it could be quite active across the country once again, with models showing more storm systems really moving through the country in that time frame. So I'm going to be looking at also some other aspects of these events as well. I'm just going to be looking at various models to see what they are weighing on in terms of snowfall amounts. The Euro is actually bringing a narrow band, which could potentially lead to snowfall amounts over a foot. They'll be coming from northeast Kansas into the Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri tri-state area, and then across Wisconsin, UP, and Michigan, then out into southern Canada from there, mainly staying north of New England. That's how this is where that heaviest banding sets up, starting in Nebraska Kansas border area, and then moving northeastward into the Midwest Great Lakes from there. It does look like some lighter snowfall, potentially 6 inches some places, could take place in the Colorado region and surrounding places. Some Rockies could get hit by a heavy snowfall too. Some of the higher elevations could get well over a foot in some places, although it is looking like general widespread 6+ inches could occur in the mountains there, with lower elevations in the lower snowfall amounts as well. How it does look like we could see southeast of some get quite some snow in the mountains as well. It does look like it's trying to bring some snow further down into Alabama, Georgia, and the Carolinas, even closer to the coastal Virginia area as well. Trying to bring some flurries at least to eastern Virginia there. While it does look like some heavy snowfall could take place in southern Appalachians as well, bringing with it possibly some several inches there. How it does look like Canadian model, we're going to be from now on mainly focusing on the main system that's going to be talked about. It is bringing us several inches with this first system. I did forget to mention this again on the Euro model. It does look like it could bring a band of several inches, 6+ in fact, in the light purple from North Dakota into northern Minnesota and mostly staying north of the Canadian border from there. However, we have our next system bringing several inches to the Denver area and also quite just a few inches, maybe 4 to 6 or so, in eastern Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska area. But then we start to see those really rack up amounts in eastern Nebraska, Kansas, and then into Iowa, southeast Minnesota, even across Wisconsin and UP, Michigan. It's where the heaviest snow is at. Even some places could potentially get 1+ foot with this model. And then it does inject into southern Canada with the heavy snowfall band and mainly staying north of the border there once again. The GFS is also showing a little further north scenario, but it does bring several inches possibly to the valleys in southeast Wyoming, western Nebraska, and Colorado, especially in Denver, where we could really get almost twins there, according to GFS. But it's really bringing the heaviest snowfall across eastern Nebraska into much of Iowa, mainly the western half, and then across southeastern Minnesota, mainly the northwest half of Wisconsin, UP, Michigan. So yeah, this is definitely a more northern scenario compared to what we've seen across all the other models as well. So there is plenty of scenarios taken into account, although the general idea here is we see a snow band that sets up somewhere across Colorado, then tracking to either Kansas, Nebraska, into Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and then UP, Michigan. Some of the more northern models, such as this one, is also bringing heavy snowfall amounts into parts of the Dakotas. and even bringing some of that heavier snowfall closer to areas like Twin Cities as well, Omaha. Those cities could also get whipped by quite a snowstorm. This will be mainly the Wednesday, Thursday period, but especially Thursday for the Midwest. So now let's move on into some of our other areas of concern in terms of what we can see with weather. So with regards to upcoming severe weather potential, this looks like tonight and tomorrow will be a concern for the southeast, but mainly in the Florida Panhandle region, just across the eastern half. In fact, again, where we do have that slight risk, that's going to be mainly from areas such as northeast Florida. That's where the highest severe weather concerns are, although I wouldn't be surprised if some of that tonight or tomorrow even, especially early on, could reach into portions of southeast Georgia, but not too far from the coast or even Florida. However, this will mean a brief break in weather after, but then this system will try to come through. Although it is bringing some of that instability mainly across Kansas and Nebraska area, just this could be a potential cold core setup area, although this would be completely uncertain at this time. Something that has been shown on the models, however, is going to be this potential cold core setup that would come through Kansas into mainly Missouri, but possibly some surrounding regions as well. Now, then it really begins to bring that Gulf moisture and instability up on shore into areas such as eastern Texas and Louisiana and portions of Mississippi, Arkansas, Oklahoma during the day on Wednesday. So when that happens, that could very likely so lead to a severe weather outbreak. It is actually pushing GFSs, trying to push that instability really far to the north. In fact, it could potentially get to places such as it'd be coming from central U.S. along the Mississippi River, potentially all the way to all of Indiana, maybe even to southern portions of Lower Michigan. This would be something we could see on Thursday. So this is the Thursday severe weather threat. And this could potentially mean storms all the way up to the Illinois-Wisconsin border and even through Michigan. But this would be coming through many areas along maybe just east of the Mississippi River Thursday afternoon and the evening. How it does look like that potential exists along the Mississippi River through St. Louis around midday. So that could potentially lead to severe storms all the way up to northern Illinois. However, this is valid for Thursday around noon local time and Central Time, though, and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, as that does happen to transition into a different time zone during the day on Thursday. And yes, this could potentially lead to some scoreline concerns reaching a very great distance across the country. That could potentially mean areas such as Midwest Great Lakes, even the furthest north, could be dealing with a squalline producing damaging winds, maybe a brief tornado or two at that kind of juncture. Now, we're not saying this for sure. Again, plenty of changes are gonna be expected throughout the period until that. How it does look like mid to late next week is gonna be a very interesting period to watch for weather once again. And that could mean some severe weather outbreaks once again, and even potential for another snowstorm to bury parts of the Midwest, Plains, and Upper Great Lakes. So it does look like it will already be quite mild across much of the southern eastern portions of the country early next week. Although this system will really be coming through and it will really kick the temperatures upward across much of the eastern half of the nation. In fact, we could be dealing with temperatures in the 50s all the way up to northern lower Michigan and even into southern Canada. So this is a quite a northerly track of a storm that's going to be bringing that widespread Gulf moisture across a great amount of the country. In fact, it is looking like this low could be tracking through Kansas and then making its way curving northward into places like Missouri, Iowa, Wisconsin, even the UP and Michigan. And north of that track could be some heavy snowstorms that could be found. Again, this is going to be north of the track. And then south of the track, we could be dealing with a very warm air mass, comparatively speaking, for middle of February, and really hasn't felt like winter at all for many places, at least for much of the season. So it is going to be kicking temperatures up in the 60s as well as dew points would be very close to temperatures, if not just a few degrees below. And that could potentially, of course, be a triggering factor for severe weather across much of the eastern half of the nation. So, of course, that's going to be quite a concern as well. and there could even be another Arctic blast across northern plains that could really send temperatures sinking again late next week behind the snowstorm, even on the cold side of it. That could result in temperatures 10 below zero, even colder than that, at least what the GFS is showing. And then this could actually continue into early parts of the weekend, and really much of the weekend even, before we get a brief, cool warm up from this. And then we could yet again, after this second solar system comes through, probably taking a similar track to what this one is going to be doing mid to late next week. And then this second solar system is going to be probably coming through early the week after the next week. And then bringing yet another Arctic episode across the northern plains and the upper Midwest. Again, this is not for sure, but this is very far out. So even with our solar system about 10 days out, definitely going to be a lot of time to change. And there's going to be lots of changes for us with that, as well as what we could potentially be seeing during the last couple weeks of February. In fact, it does look like once again it could be really active during those last 2 weeks. So now I hope you enjoyed this forecast and found this forecast, in fact, to be informational, useful, helpful for your future forecasts. And if you did and want to see more from this channel, please do consider hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell. Other than that, stay safe, everyone. Have a great night.